Hi, friends of the planet. Mira here. Today, I'm so thrilled to have with us two very special guests who are going to talk to us a bit more about investment in clean tech and how this investment can begin to support a more diverse set of entrepreneurs and what benefits that brings to our country and, to climate action in general. So with me today, I have founder and president of Kipling Jones and Company, Robbie Jones, as well as Nick Montoni, who is the Innovation Policy Advisor for the Climate and Energy Program at Third Way. So thank you both so much for being with me today.
Thanks, Muriel.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask Robbie if perhaps you can walk me through how private capital investment has evolved in recent years. Previously it was really difficult to attract private investment to this type of innovation. So have things changed?
Things are changing and very slowly. Historically, investment in the energy sector has been on traditional sources of energy, so fossil fuels, and things of that nature. Lately, I would say within the last 5 to 10 years, and really within the last 5. And if I were to narrow it down, I would say within the last 3, we are starting to see in the financial services industry more of a focus on providers of clean energy. And I think that from a macro standpoint, it stems from, obviously, first and foremost, there's more of an interest, not just domestically, but globally, in what we as citizens can do to protect the country and its environment and the world and its environment. So that has led to things like the Paris Accord. We're starting to see more traditional manufacturers really jump on board. In order for that to happen, there has to be clean energy. Clean energy providers, which used to, from an investment banking standpoint, be looked at almost as an alternative investment in the same category as you might see coins or shipwrecks or things like that. It's like, oh, solar, that's fringe. We can't do that. But now it's more widely accepted. And because it's more widely accepted, investors chase slowly, but are starting to actively seek out companies which provide those types of sources of energy.
Good that it's changing a bit, but hopefully it can start moving a lot more quickly.
Yes.
And so being an entrepreneur is difficult in general. There's a lot of risks involved. Being a clean tech entrepreneur is more difficult at that. But can you maybe walk us through the additional challenges that women, people of color, other minority groups perhaps face when wanting to start companies and attract investment in this space?
As a minority, as a woman, as a founder, there's always the challenge of acceptance, credentials, qualifications, expertise, and that, whether it's overtly or implicitly, has to be addressed before getting to the real question of, does your business make sense? Do the services that you offer, feel a need? Can I, as an investor, profit from it? And it makes literally every aspect of it more difficult. When you look at founders in the clean energy space, which again is just really starting to become commonly accepted, it's a triple whammy. There's gender, there's race, if that's an issue, and then a new sector that's just starting to become traditionally accepted.
It also seems just like getting your foot in the door to be recognized, to Robbie's point, seems like an immense hurdle for a more diverse set of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and I think, we can just look at the state of the industry right now. Various studies that actually look at what kinds of people are founding innovative high-tech businesses. We see that they're 92% men and only 7% women, 86% white, 10% Asian, 3% Hispanic, and with almost no Black founders at all, or a negligible number. And so I think you're absolutely right. They're not getting their foot in the door. Part of the problem is that they're not getting their foot in the door. So it creates it creates this feedback loop. And so if we say, representation matters, but that's true both for entrepreneurs and for funders. One way to really see more of these different diverse people being encouraged and supported in founding a business is to have more founders and funders who are like them.
So Nick, I wanted to ask on that point, this is a big question, but what are some initial steps we can take to increase the diversity of clean tech investment? I know there are some best practices out there that you've certainly written about, but what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's sort of the question of the day, I think. Let's take a step back and look at what's already worked, and then we can talk about how those might apply across the field. In the last 10 years, the National Science Foundation has actually doubled the number of small business research grants they've given to entrepreneurs who are women or from socially and economically disadvantaged backgrounds. Now, that second one, socially and economically disadvantaged backgrounds, is sort of a catch-all category that might refer to someone from a low-income background, someone disabled, people of color. We would love to see that data broken down a bit more so we can get a better picture of who's getting these awards. But for now, that's the catch-all category that we're using. But yeah, so the National Science Foundation has doubled those numbers in the last 10 years, which is pretty good. They're, seem to be outstripping other government offices in giving those awards out. What are some best practices that I know of that are working for different government agencies? Well, the National Science Foundation provides technical assistance and dedicated program managers to these entrepreneurs. So this allows applicants who might not be familiar with the process or might be new to the National Science Foundation or applying to a government grant. This gives them a chance to make sure their application gets seen by someone or make sure they do fill it out right. There's also the idea of doing an open topic. And so an open topic for a research grant like this is, instead of putting out a 200-page funding opportunity announcement that has 10 specific technology categories that people have to fit their ideas into, an open topic lets people pitch their own ideas. So you actually get wider variety and a more creative set of entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And actually, the Water Power Technologies Office, which is within the Department of Energy, and the Air Force's Small Business Technology Transfer Office have both put out open topics and found that they get more applications from a more diverse set of people.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And I would say another great thing that actually is going on now and just closed last week is the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy in the Department of Energy has just closed a request for information on inclusive innovation. Hopefully, they'll be compiling all of that information and coming up with their own list of best practices for how to make innovation more inclusive. My colleague, Doug Rand, and I wrote a memo that outlines many more best practices. You can find that on Third Way's website.
Yeah, we'll link it down below in the description of this. That's great. Wonderful. So then, Robbie, I wanted to ask you, would having more venture capital firms led by women increase the diversity of entrepreneurs receiving funding, do you think?
I absolutely think so. There has been a lot of research indicating that historically across sectors, funders invest in people that look like them, talk like them, that they feel comfortable with. Third Way has looked at this in some of its research. I think that, this is my biased opinion, women tend to be more open and look beyond the traditional metrics when considering all decisions, including therefore investment decisions. When there have been far too few venture capital firms led by women, they tend to have a broader investment portfolio and are willing to consider, for example, more startups from a more diverse group of founders. Anecdotally, I'm told, look at a broader range of companies such as clean tech and the businesses that support it.
I think that goes back to Nick's point earlier about not having this incredibly dense definition of, like what kind of a company gets funded. So from your experience, Robbie, that seems like women are already kind of naturally doing those best practices that Nick outlined earlier when they're able to lead these funds. And Nick, looking at this from a bit of a more macro level, what sorts of economic potential could more inclusive entrepreneurship bring the United States? Like what is the economic advantage?
I love this question because I think we certainly want to talk about the moral obligation we have to make clean tech entrepreneurship and innovation more inclusive. But, it turns out that it also benefits our economy and benefits entrepreneurs, and just like, it's better, it's all kinds of better. The thing to say is we have, I think, decades now of research that shows that more diverse groups of problem solvers are more innovative and more productive and more efficient than homogeneous groups. And that's been studied by psychologists and business leaders. I can't quantify it off the top of my head, but I can tell you that if we make our high-tech and innovative industries more diverse, we're going to be producing better technology for less, faster.
And Nick, I think that seems really in line with last week's IPCC report that really tells us that it is go time. We really have, the runway has run out to, act on a lot of these things. So it's like we need to go with what worked. And it seems like what really works is having a lot more diverse voices and viewpoints leading this technology, funding it. So I think that that's a really wonderful point, and also leads me to my last question. And I wanted to ask the both of you what you hope the VC landscape will look like in the coming decade when it comes to clean tech investment. And Robbie, maybe we'll start with you and then go to Nick.
Gosh, what a great question. And the answer is more diversity, more investment, more governmental involvement. There are federal agencies that have been very, very helpful. Department of Energy, for example. I would love to see some of their programs show up in other cabinet level agencies and departments. I would like to see more state and local involvement. Ideally, I would like to see clean tech not viewed as an other, just as much of a bona fide investment as manufacturing or housing starts or anything like that. And then last, but certainly not least, I would like to see, a purely, completely diverse investment side of the equation, as well as founders, diverse in race, gender, thought process, etc.
Absolutely. Nick, what do you see when you look out in the next 10 years or 20 years? What's your vision and hope?
Yeah, I love that you brought up the IPCC report earlier. I think that and the International Energy Agency's report from earlier this year on the pathway to net zero, there's one nugget from there that always stands out to me that I like to bring up, which is that about 50% of the carbon reductions that we're going to see between 2030 and 2050 are coming from technologies that are currently in the prototype or demonstration phase. These entrepreneurs, they're dealing with technologies that come right after the demonstration phase, right? They're dealing with technologies that are just becoming ready for scale up and deployment. And so beyond demonstrating these new technologies, we need a massive investment in deployment of these new technologies. I'm really hoping that we're going to be focusing on, in the next 10 years, we've really got to get our prototype demonstration and deployment ecosystem up to speed, ready to go. And I think I really love what Robbie said about clean energy not being a fringe case anymore, because it can't be. It's got to be the main event, right? It's the main course. Otherwise, we're not going to meet our emissions targets. That's really critical.
Absolutely. I'll add my one little hope, in that this is not my expertise like it is yours, but my husband and I are big fans of the show Billions. And my hope is in the next decade that Hollywood and our pop culture starts broadening what an entrepreneur looks like. So, that girls and kids from more diverse backgrounds really see themselves in this space and hopefully find their footing in it. I think that would be wonderful if, as a society, we can begin to redefine what this means as a whole. So thank you both so much for taking the time to walk us through this. I know I learned a lot. In the description of this video on YouTube, we'll put both of your social handles if folks want to follow you, learn more about your work. But thank you again for taking the time. This was really wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Miro. It's been great.